Prohibition of inhuman treatment. Article 14. No person shall be subjected to torture or inhuman or degrading treatment or punishment. Prohibition of slavery and forced labor. Article 15. No one shall be held in slavery or be required to perform forced or compulsive labor. For the purpose of this article, the term forced or compulsory labor shall not be include a. Any work required to be done in the course of detention under the sentence of a court of law. B. Any service excited in case of an emergency or calamity threatening the life or well-being of the community. C. Any service of a military character. Or D. Any work of service which forms part of the normal civic obligations of a nation. A prohibition of employment of children. Article 16. No children below the age of 14 years shall be employed to work in any factory or mine or engaged in any other hazardous employment. Religious freedom. Article 17. All religions denominations are equal before the law. Every Tibetan shall have the right to freedom or thought, coincidence, and religion. The right includes freedom to openly believe, practice, worship, and observe any religion alone or in community with others. Freedom to manifest one's religion or beliefs and to deal with any matter relating to religion or charitable purpose either alone or in community with other shall be subjected with only such limitations as are prescribed by the law and are necessary in the interest of public safety, for the protection of public order, health, and morals, or for the protection of the rights and freedoms of others. Other fundamental freedoms. Article 18. Some subject to any law imposing reasonable restrictions in the citizens of the security of the state, public order, health, or morality. All citizens shall be entitled to freedom of speech and expression, as B. assemble peaceably and without arms. C. From associations or unions. D. Move freely throughout the territories of Tibet. E. The right to a passport to travel outside those territories. F. And settle in any part of Tibet. Acquire, hold, and dispose of property. Practice any profession or carry on any occupation, trade, or business. Rights to property. Article 19. No person shall be derived of his property saved by authority of law and for public purpose on payment of compensation or just compensation. The right to vote. Article 20. All Tibetans, men and women, who have attained the age of 18 and above shall have the right to vote. The vote shall be personal, equal, free, and secret, and its exercise shall be deemed to be a civic obligation. Disqualification of vote. Article 21. A person shall be disqualified to vote if he is of unsound mind and stands so declared by a competent court. 2. A person shall not have the right to vote if he is so disqualified by any law. Excuse me. Right to hold office. Article 22. All Tibetans of either sex shall have the equal right to hold public offices, whether elective or otherwise, on conditions of equality in accordance with the requirements of law. Obligations of nationals. Article 23. All Tibetans shall fulfill the following constitution obligations. Bear true allegiance to the state of Tibet. Faithfully comply with and observe the constitution and the laws of the state. A. Bear true allegiance to the state of Tibet. And B. Faithfully comply with and observe the constitution and the laws of the state. And C. To pay taxes imposed by the state in accordance with the law. And D. Perform such obligations as may be imposed by law in the event of a threat to national security or other public calamity. Enforcement of rights. Article 24. Every citizen whose rights and freedoms as set forth in this chapter are violated shall have the right to approach the Supreme Court, regional courts, and such other courts as the National Assembly made by a law designated for the enforcement of those rights and freedoms enumerated in this chapter, and the court shall be entitled to pass such order as are necessary to protect those rights. Chapter 3 of Landholding, Article 25. 1. All land shall belong to the state and shall be made available on payment of annual rent as may be fixed from the time to time for building, agricultural, and other purposes according to need. The state shall prevent the concentration of landholding in order to promote economics and social justice. 3. No land should be transferable by the holder or be used for any purpose different from that for which it was granted without the permission of the state. Chapter 4. Directive Principles of the State. Social Welfare. Article 26. The state shall endeavor to secure that the ownership and control of the material resources of the community shall be distributed as best to subserve the common good, and that the operation of the economic system does not result in the concentration of wealth and means of production to the common determinant. Two, the system of taxation shall be so devised that the burden is distributed according to capacity. 3. The state shall direct its policy toward securing that the citizens, men and women, equally have the right to an adequate means of livelihood, and that there is equal pay for equal work for both men and women. Education and culture. Article 27. 1. The state shall endeavor to promote education so that educational facilities are available to every child above the age of 6 and that free primary education for a period of 7 years is provided. The state shall pay social attention to the young and promote technical and professional and higher education. Such education shall be generally available and accessible on the basis of merit, and that the scholarships shall be also available of the basis of merit to those unable to pay for such education. 3. All educational establishments shall be under the control and supervision of the state. The state shall endeavor to preserve and promote national culture and to support researchers both in arts and sciences. Health, Article 28. The state shall endeavor to promote adequate health and medical services to provide that such services would be available free to those sections of the population which are unable to pay for them. 2. The state shall endeavor to provide necessary facilities and institutions for the care of the aged of the infirm. Chapter 4 of Executive Government. Executive Power, Article 29. 1. The executive power of the state shall be visited in His Holiness the Dalai Lama and on his attaining the age of 18 shall be exercised by him, either directly or through officers subordinate to him in advance, accordance with him either directly or through officers subordinate to him in accordance with the provisions of the Constitution. 2. Without prejudice to the generality of the foregoing provisions, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, as the head of the state, shall accredit or withdraw diplomatic representatives in foreign countries and receive foreign diplomatic representatives and ratify international treaties with previous approval and appropriate cases of the National Assembly or the standing commissions of the National Assembly. B. Grant pardons, respite, or remission of punishment, or suspended remit or commute the sentence of any person convicted of any offense. Confer honors and patents of merit. Promulgate laws in accordance having the force and validity of laws. Summon and prorogue the National Assembly. Send messages to the National Assembly and address it in whichever he in discretion considers it necessary, and authorize the holding of a referendum in cases provided for by this Constitution. Nothing in this article shall be deemed to alter or affect in any manner the power and authority of His Holiness the Dalai Lama as the supreme spiritual head of the state. Ministers of the Kashag. Article 30. His Holiness the Dalai Lama shall from the time to time appoint such number of ministers as may be required out of the said ministers. His Holiness the Dalai Lama shall nominate a prime minister and not less than 5 other ministers to be members of the Kashag. 2. No minister shall be a member of the National Assembly. 3. Any person appointed as a minister shall, on such appointment, in case he is a member of the National Assembly, vacate his seat in the National Assembly. Before any minister enters upon his office, His Holiness the Dalai Lama shall administer to him the oath of office of secrecy in accordance with the form and procedure prescribed by law. The Kashag shall aid and advise His Holiness the Dalai Lama in the administration of the executive government of the state. Salaries and the allowances of the ministers shall be such as the National Assembly from time to time by law determined. Meeting of the Kashag, Article 31. 1. His Holiness the Dalai Lama shall preside over the meetings of the Kashag, and his absence such meeting shall be prescribed over the Prime Minister or by senior-most minister present. Second, His Holiness the Dalai Lama may invite any other minister or ministers to attend such meetings of the Kashag. Promulgating of laws. Article 32. His Holiness the Dalai Lama shall promulgate laws within a fortnight of their transmission of the Kashag after their final adoption by the National Assembly, provided always that His Holiness the Dalai Lama may ask the Assembly to consider the law of any provision therefore before expiry of this period, and the National Assembly shall reconsider it in accordance with the message of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Submissions to referendum. Article 33. His Holiness the Dalai Lama may, in his discretion or on the recommendation of the Kashag, prefer any proposed legislation to a referendum, and if the proposed legislation is proposed by the majority of the electors, His Holiness the Dalai Lama shall promulgate it within the period specified in the last preceding article. Dissolution of the National Assembly, Article 34. His Holiness the Dalai Lama may dissolve the National Assembly after consulting the Kashag and the Speaker of the National Assembly, provided always that in such a case a general election shall be held in not less than 14 days after the dissolution. Conduct of business of government, Article 35. All executive action of the government of Tibet shall be expressed to be taken in the name of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, with the previous approval of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. The Kashag shall make rules for the more convenient transaction of the business of the government of Tibet, for the allocation among ministers of the said business, and thereafter submit such draft proposal to His Holiness the Dalai Lama for approval. Council of Regency, Article 26. There shall be a council of regency to exercise executive powers in the following circumstances. Until such period as the reincarnate Dalai Lama becomes of age to assume the powers of his predecessors. B. Until such period as His Holiness the Dalai Lama has not assumed the powers of his predecessors. In case of any disability which prevents His Holiness the Dalai Lama from exercising his executive functions, in case of the absence of His Holiness the Dalai Lama from the state, which the National Assembly, by majority of 2/3 of its total members in the Constitution elected by the National Assembly, one of whom shall be ecclesiastical representative, provided that a member of the National Assembly shall advocate his seat if elected a member of the Council of Regency. 3. Any minister, if elected a member of the Council of Regency, shall cease to hold his office. 4. A person elected member of the Council of Regency shall take the oath of office before the National Assembly in accordance with the form prescribed by law. Whenever any member of the Council of Regency, as a result of death or otherwise, is unable to discharge his functions, the National Assembly shall elect a new member. If a member of the Council of Regency is required to be removed from office while the National Assembly is not in session, the Assembly's Standing Commission, in consultation with the Kashag, may deprive the said member of the functions and later recommend to the National Assembly the removal of such person from office. The National Assembly may remove the said member if it considers proper, and on removal shall elect a new member in the same section. If 2 or all 3 members of the Council of Regency are required to be removed from office while the National Assembly is not in session, the Assembly's Standing Commission, in consulting with the Kashag, may summon an emergency assembly and recommend to the National Assembly to removal. With the Kashang may summon an emergency assembly and recommend to the National Assembly the removal of office of such persons. The Assembly may remove all or such of these members as it considers proper. The Assembly shall also on such removal elect in the same session new members in place of those removed. The duration of each council regency will be of the same period as that of the National Assembly. 9. And that was 8 of the 8 is the duration of 9. The Council of Regency is consultation with the Kashag Exelitical Council and the Standing Commission of the National Assembly will conduct the search for the reincarnation of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. The Council will then submit its findings and opinion on the determination and installation of the reincarnation of the National Assembly for the adoption of a resolution. 10. The Council of Regency shall have no power to alienate any part of the territory of the state or enter into any international agreement in relation to the independence of the state, except with the previous approval of the majority of the electors, expressed in a referendum held in accordance with the provisions of the Constitution, such other laws as may be enacted in the behalf by the National Assembly. Ecclesiastical Council Article 37. 1. There shall be an ecclesiastical council to administer. There shall be an ecclesiastical council to the administration of the affairs of all monasteries and religions institutions in the state under the direct authority of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. The ecclesiastical council shall consist of not less than 5 members, directly appointed by His Holiness the Dalai Lama from time to time. 3. The ecclesiastical council, with the previous approval of the Holiness the Dalai Lama, will have the responsibility and power to administer all religious affairs. Chapter 6. Of legislative authority. Legislative power, Article 38. All legislative power shall vest in the National Assembly, subject to assent of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Composition of the National Assembly, Article 39. 1. The National Assembly shall consist of a 75% of members directly elected by the people in the territorial constituencies. B. 10% of members elected by the monasteries and other religious institutions in accordance with the law enacted in its behalf. C. 10% of members elected by regional and district councils in accordance with the laws enacted in this behalf, and D. 5% of members nominated directly by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Such persons shall be elected for their distinguished services in the field of art, science, and literature. 2. For the purpose of subclause A, the state shall be divided into territorial constituencies. Each constituency shall be made up of an equal proportion of those entitled to vote. The number of members to allotted to each constituency shall be determined by an electoral commissions appointed by His Holiness the Dalai Lama in his behalf. Duration of the National Assembly, Article 40. Each National Assembly, unless sooner dissolved, shall continue for 5 years from the date appointed for its meeting, and no longer, and the expiration of the said period of 5 years shall operate as a dissolution of the House.